Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Psalms, the 104th chapter. Bless the Lord Yahweh, O my soul, O Lord, my God. Thou art very great. Thou art clothed with honor and majesty, who covers thyself with light as with a garment, showing the majesty of the Lord, right? Imagine that, right? The Lord, it's like in the Lord's glory is likened unto being covered, right? Like wearing light itself as a garment, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain. So, we ain't never going to have to worry about running out of space. You know how wide and huge the heavens are? It says, who layeth the beams of his chambers in the waters. Okay, and this is describing, it's another way of saying that his habitation is high, right? He dwells up in the heavens. Because when you go into the word, let's go into a few of the words here. Right, when you layeth the beams, let's pull that up. And also chambers, right? It's referring to the roof. Okay, so it says here, okay, to lay the beams, to come to meet, to build with beams, right? To lay the beams. So it's kind of like laying down the foundation. And these are the words beams, right? Roof chamber. Okay, so it says here he lays the beams, right? His roof is in the waters. What waters is that talking about? The waters that are above, right? Let's see. Waters. Let's look at the word praise. Here. This is Psalm chapter, or Psalms 148:4. Praise him, ye heavens of heavens, and ye waters that be above the heavens. Because remember, going back to Genesis, right, it said that the Lord created the firmament to divide the waters above from the waters beneath. So you have the waters here on earth, right, which are gathered into seas, but above you also have waters, right, in the heavens, which is why, what is that, Shemayim, pertaining to the waters, Shamayim. So laying his beams, right, which is his roof in the waters, which is the heavens, is basically like saying his dwelling, or his habitation is high. Who maketh the clouds his chariot. Okay, and here we know the clouds are referencing the what the world calls the UFOs. Okay, his chariot, which is his vehicles. Who walketh upon the wings of the wind. Now he's not actually walking, on the wind, but he could if he wanted to. But the way he walks on the wind is flying, basically in his chariot. That's the majesty of the Lord. Okay. Verse 4, who maketh his angels spirits, his ministers, which the ministers are servants, a flaming fire. And that flaming fire is describing the spirits of his angels. All right, remember that account? I think it was it either Gideon or Manoah? I think it was Manoah, when they made an offering and the angel jumped in the fire and ascended up into heaven. Okay, I believe also, let's see, it might be in here in Revelation. Yeah, there you go. Revelation 4:5. It says, and out of the throne proceeded lightnings and thunderings and voices, and there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God, okay, which are dealing with the angels as well. So, it says he maketh his ministers a flaming fire. So his servants, which are which are the angels. Verse 5, who laid the foundations of the earth, that it should not be removed forever. See, so once the Lord fixed and set up the foundation of the earth, that's why in Ecclesiastes 1:4 it says the earth abideth forever, right? One generation, passeth away and another cometh, but the earth abideth forever, because the Lord set it up, right? It's not going to be removed. Verse 6, thou coverest it with the deep as with a garment. The waters stood above the mountains. And this is going into the flood. Okay, it's referring to the time when the Lord flooded the world and he covered it up, right? It says the water stood above the mountains. At thy rebuke, they fled, right? During the time of Noah, after all life died, eventually the Lord commanded the waters to subside. At the voice of thy thunder, they hasted away. They go up by the mountains, they go down by the valleys onto the place which thou hast founded for them, right? That's when the water eventually, subsided back into the place where we see as seas today. Thou hast set a bound that they may not pass over, that they turn not again to cover the earth. And he eventually gave us that covenant, right? The rainbow. But he said he set a bound, a limit, so that the waters would not overflood the earth again. Verse 10, he sendeth the springs into the valleys which run among the hills. They gave drink to every beast, or they give drink. This is talking about the Lord's basically the Lord's foundation, right, or founding or architecting of creation through his wisdom, right? So here it says he sends springs into the valleys which run among the hills, which are, your rivers and your bodies of water. They give drink to every beast of the field. The wild asses quench their thirst, right? Because they, animals that are out there, how do you think they survive? There's bodies of water all around. By them shall the fowls of the heaven have their habitation, which sing among the branches. He watereth the hills from his chambers. The earth is satisfied with the fruit of thy works. See here, David is basically attributing, right? Let's go back up. Okay, well, it doesn't say who the psalmist is here. So we'll say here the psalmist is attributing all this to the Lord, right? He's acknowledging that this was all the work, the power of the Lord, not any idols, right? Now he's not talking about here he watereth the hills, right? He watereth the hills from his chambers, and that's the power of the hill god, Higlath. I just made that up, but it says, you see how I could just throw out a name like that and make that up? That's literally about what it takes to make up these damn idols that these people bow down to. It says here, the earth, really all it is somebody goes and chops down some wood, makes an image, makes an idol, throws a name to it, gives it a cover story, and then bam. Okay, here you go. New product coming by. Rise, kill, and eat. New York City tap water, drink up. That's a joke. It says here, the earth is satisfied with the fruit of thy works. See? Because the Lord has set everything in a proper order, and everything balances out itself. He causeth the grass to grow for the cattle, and herb for the service of man. See? So the Lord has grass grow from the earth, right, for the cattle to be able to eat, and medicines or herbs for us to be able to use, that he may bring forth fruit out of the earth. Okay, going into, because everything we get, really, even the things we have today, come from the earth. Everything we use comes from the earth. Verse 15, and wine that maketh glad the heart of man, which comes from grapes, which comes from the earth, and oil to make his face to shine, right, which is your actual, olive oils, which comes from olives, which can be used as, oil, but also, right, spiritually, this oil, just throwing that in there, because this is also a good precept, but spiritually, that's representing this truth, which is likened unto oil. And real quick, I think this is, let me just search it. Face to shine. It should be in Ecclesiastes. There you go. Ecclesiastes 8 and 11, 8 and 1. Who is as the wise man, and who knoweth the interpretation of a thing? A man's wisdom, which comes by way of the oil, which is symbolic for this truth, or this knowledge, maketh his face to shine. Right? One example is Moses. Okay, it says here, and the boldness of his face shall be changed. Okay, so coming back here, but here in context is dealing with actual oil. And bread, which strengtheneth man's heart. Okay, which is food. Lacham. Verse 16, the trees of the Lord are full of sap. The cedars of Lebanon, which he hath planted, where the birds make their nests. As for the stork, the fir trees are her house. The high hills are a refuge for the wild goats, and the rocks for the conies. Right, so you have different, parts of the earth the Lord has made. You notice the earth has different, terrain, right? Some places are more desert-like, and there are certain creatures that is meant for, right? Some places are more like a rainforest. Some creatures where it's meant for. Some places are more hilly. Creatures are meant for that. You see, everything is set up because the creatures that dwell there are designed for it. You have a mountain lion, and then you have a regular kind of lion, and then you have certain goats, right? If you type in a goat, there's different kinds of goat, and some of them look very different. Sheep, different kind of sheep, So the Lord has designed everything through His wisdom, and it all works in tandem. He appointed the moon for seasons. The sun knoweth is going down. Nobody has to go and tell you late. The sun and the moon, they work almost like living creatures, right? Like they work in their like the moon automatically. Okay, you have the phases of the moon. The sun comes up and goes down automatically. It says, "Thou makest darkness as it is night." It's like, "Thou makest darkness, and it is night, wherein all the beasts of the forest do creep, go forth." Right? So you have the nocturnal creatures, they come out at night. The young lions roar after their prey and seek their meat from God, right? Because when you watch Animal Planet, it's really all circumstantial, but it's design of the Lord, right? Because you'll see, on the one hand, from one perspective, there's a lioness who was bereaved of her cubs. She has only one left, and she's hunting to try and come and bring food to feed her cubs, right? And then on the other perspective, whoever she's catching is the child of, say, some antelope, which also had a hard life. So all these things are really set up by the Lord anyway, right? But going back to the point, verse 22, "The sun ariseth, they gather themselves together and lay them down in their dens." So you have certain creatures that come out at night. You have certain creatures that are crepuscular, right? So they're most active at dawn and dusk, like certain wolves and cats. If you have a cat, you'll notice that they like to run around the house thinking they're the Flash or something, at 3, 4, 5 a.m., That's crepuscular creatures. It says here, "The sun ariseth, they gather themselves together and lay them down in their dens." So they go and rest. And then what? Now it's time for man, right? Man goeth forth unto his work and to his labor until the evening. So you see how everything is set up and orchestrated by the Lord? When the sun goes down, certain creatures come out, they do their thing. The sun comes up, now man comes forth, and because we all do our work in the daytime, all right, for the most part. And really, that's how it was set up to be. Now they got overnight jobs. It says here, "O Yahweh, how manifold are thy works." Now, you had similar jobs back then for like a watchman and so on. But it says here, "How manifold are thy works in wisdom." See that? "Hast thou made them all." This wasn't random. If it was random, it would have broken down a long time ago. It's not random that animals, all different kinds and variety of animals, all know where to dwell, how to hunt. How did the first lion know how to hunt? Right? Think about that. Because it's very tactical. And in fact, humans have actually learned from animals. So how did they know? How do they know, to move lightly, to go down into the tall grass, to stalk their prey? Lions hunt in formation. They have some that spook they spot their prey, they spook the prey, and then there's some that are all the way ahead. They try to cut it off and separate it from the rest of the pack or the rest of the herd. And then there's some that actually go in for the kill. It's actually coordinated. So how do they know that? How do birds know how to make a nest? Do you think there's a human being making a bird's nest in the trees somewhere for them? No. So how does a bird know how to actually make a nest and where to put the nest? Why does a bird not put the nest right by the water? Why does it put it on a tree? You see that? All these things, it's what the Lord set it up in wisdom. Okay? You have different creatures that dwell in different areas. Why don't certain animals migrate to certain areas? Because they know they won't survive over there. And how come everything that certain animals need is in their habitation? It says here, "The earth is full of thy riches," which is the riches of the wisdom of the Lord that is shown forth in creation. "So is this great and wide sea, wherein are things creeping innumerable." Right? So mainly it was describing the land, but in the sea is a world on its own, both small and great beasts. "There go the ships. There is that Leviathan whom thou hast made to play therein." This is dealing with actual Leviathan. Okay, not a reference to Esau, but here it's actual Leviathan, a sea creature, right? Or his kind, you could say. And they got to be in some of the deepest, darkest depths of the ocean. And you see that? Whom thou hast made to play. Because he's basically the king of the ocean. And he's been made to play around in there. Now you better hope, you better hope and pray, all right, that he doesn't get tired of playing down there and decide to come up here and see what's up over here. It says here, these wait all upon thee, that thou mayest give them their meat in due season. Everything. And that's why Yahushua said, if the Lord so clothe the grass of the field and feed the birds, right? Are you not much more valuable than two sparrows? So all these depend on the Lord for their life to go on. And you know what? Some animals have to eat some animals to keep the population under control, and keep everything in balance. Because when there's too much of a certain creature, it can drive out another species, and that other species might actually be beneficial, like bees. Bees are essential for making honey. So everything works together. It all works together. Don't come and tell me no Big Bang Theory out here. Then you're gonna add the theory at the end too. Add a little bit of insult to that injury. Big Bang Theory. And we should accept that over truth. Come on now. Verse 28, that thou givest them, right? It says here, verse 27, these wait all upon thee, that thou mayest give them their meat in due season. That thou givest them, they gather. Thou openest thine hand, they are filled with good. Right? This is the Lord providing for his creation. Thou hidest thy face, they are troubled. Thou takest away their breath, they die. Showing you that our spirit comes from the Lord. And if he takes that away, we're dead, we're cooked. And return to their dust. Right? That's what happens when you die. Your body goes back to the earth. It breaks down and decomposes. Thou sendest forth thy spirit, they are created. So our spirits come from the Lord. And when we die, it goes back to the spirit world. And thou renewest the face of the earth, right? That's with the new generation of the spirits that come on the earth. The glory of the Lord Yahweh shall endure forever. The Lord shall rejoice in his works. He looketh on the earth, and it trembleth. He toucheth the hills, and they smoke. That's the power of the Lord. See, and all he did was but lightly touch it in Sinai, and Israel already knew. I will sing unto the Lord Yahweh as long as I live. I will sing praise to my God while I have my being. My meditation of him shall be sweet, right? The thoughts that you have of the Lord is going to be sweet. And like just even reading this alone shows how glorious the Lord is. And we have but a fraction of an understanding of what the Lord has actually created. How much more appreciation do you think we will have for creation once we actually understand the fullness behind it? Yeah, it's like if you listen to music and you always listen to it, but somebody starts pointing out like the depth of the lyrics. When he actually said this, you know what that means? Oh, damn, that was deep. Now you listen to it different. Now you have a greater appreciation for the artist. Okay, it says, let the sinners be consumed out of the earth. Oh, Salakia, my meditation of him will be sweet. I will be glad in the Lord. Let the sinners be consumed out of the earth, and let the wicked be no more. And that's what's going to happen, right? The Lord is going to bring judgment upon them, and their time is going to be up. Bless thou the Lord Yahweh, O my soul. Praise ye the Lord Yahweh. And that brings us to the end of the book of Psalms, the 104th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Bracha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.